Hi, it's me, obviously, William Crump. And those of you who know the towns and cities and villages of Northern Ireland will know that I'm in Lurgan, Shankill Parish Church behind me. This is my hometown. When I say hometown, I mean the town that I was born in, the town that I was raised in, and the town that my generations before me all were born and lived and died in. I'm here today just to try and follow the story of my grandfather, William John Caulfield, to look at where he lived and where he's buried. It'll be interesting to me. Maybe even be interesting to some of you. So all my research brings me to this area of Lurgan. Behind me is Union Street, more of in a moment or two. This is Hill Street, and Ann Street is just up on my left. Because in this area, the first of my families that were buried, and I'll be visiting the graveyard shortly, there was a child of Eliza Caulfield from Ann Street, next in fact 21 Ann Street. There was Jane Caulfield, Union Street, Francis Caulfield, Hill Street, Samuel Caulfield, Ann Street. Those are the only three that I don't really know who they were. I'm in Union Street in Lurgan because this is where my grandfather lived, both as a single man and then when he was married. In the White House behind me, 104 Union Street, is where he lived with his mother Sharon and his two sisters, Jane and Ellen. I know that from the census of 1901 and the signing of the Ulster Common. When he got married, I think it was to his first wife Charlotte, they moved just down the street to number 77 Union Street. Quite a lot of the family were members of the Shankill Parish Church, which is just up onto the main street and to the left. In fact, you've already seen it in the very opening shot. But on the census of 1901, it states that Sarah, who's my great-grandmother, Ellen, who's my great-aunt, Jane, who's my great-aunt, and William John Caulfield, obviously I'm a namesake, didn't attend Shankill Parish Church, but rather were gathered to saints, or members of the saints gathering in the Gospel Hall in Union Street, which is here. It's now well, I think it's a clothes shop, or maybe a charity shop of some description. And this is where they went. And not only did my grandfather go there, but then my father. And I was brought along there as a child, and in fact, in that very building, when I was 13 years of age at a mission, I became a Christian. Between 1924 and 1927, my grandfather and my grandmother moved from the Union Street area to Brownlow Terrace. They lived in this house here, number 32. What brought them here? Well, I'm not really sure, but my father was a cloth passer or a cloth examiner in the Lurgan Weaving Company Limited, which is just around the corner. Today that would be a quality control person. Sadly, both he and my grandmother died in 1955. Sometime between 1955 and 1959, my father and mother moved into this house, 32 Brownlow Terrace. And how I know that is because in 1959, I was actually born in a bedroom upstairs in 32 Brownlow Terrace. But sadly, of course, every family story ends in a place like this. And I am in Shankill Graveyard in Lurgan. I had no idea where the grave was or where the plot was. Chance encounter on Facebook, Friends of Shankill Graveyard, put me in touch with Isabel Highlands, and I'm meeting Isabel here to show me where the plot is. Isabel, lovely to meet you.
Nice to see you too, Steve.
And this is what we can do. And you have lots of books and one thing and another.
Well,
And I'm going now to see this plot. The most interesting bit about this plot is there's 14 people buried in it. I asked Isabel, and I'll ask her again for you, how come there's 14 people buried in it?
Because you've got a plot which is approximately 20 foot long.
The plot is 20 foot long. It doesn't happen nowadays. We'll go and visit it in a second. And here I am. Plot 371, which according to the records here is an unmarked grave. But we know that it's approximately where that tree is. So while it doesn't have a headstone as such, well, they're fertilizing that tree. 14 of them. This is where my grandfather lies, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, the 2 stillborn babies, cousins, aunts. And the last person to be put into that grave was Sarah Caulfield. She lived in Carnegie Street in Lurgan, and in 1963 in the New Year's Honours List was awarded the BEM. I still have a letter at home signed by the Queen, apologising that she wouldn't be able to present the medal in person. But it's nice that she was awarded the medal, and I've got the Queen's signature. So, 14 people in the one grave. 3 of them I don't know, haven't been able to find out who they are. But I'm going to do the roll of honour now. The first person that was put in the grave was in 1899, a child of Eliza Caulfield. Next in was Jane Caulfield, that was a sister of my granda, therefore my great aunt. Then Charlotte Caulfield, his first wife, who died when she was only 29 years of age. My grand at the time was in his early 30s. Francis Caulfield and Samuel Caulfield were next into the grave. I've no idea who they were. Sarah Caulfield then, that was my granda's mother, my great-grandmother was next. Then Ellen Caulfield, his sister, and an unnamed stillborn daughter, his first child. Then another daughter, stillborn again. Then his aunt, Elizabeth Caulfield, and his cousin, James Hutchison Caulfield, who incidentally, for those of you that are fans of comedy, is the granda of Joe Caulfield, the comedian who you may have seen on television in England. Also her sister Annie, a comedy writer and a travel writer. Then there was William John Caulfield, my granda, followed the same year by his second wife, my grandmother, Elizabeth Caulfield. And then finally, the last Caulfield to be interred here, and indeed the last Caulfield ever to be interred there, Sarah Caulfield. They all lie in a grave that at this moment is unmarked, but I'm going to do something about that. So, what I really find interesting is even though that the plot is 20 feet long on the records, up there, it's maybe only 6 feet, simply because the people that are buried all around it have encroached in to the space. But that of course isn't the end of the Caulfield story. My grandfather had 2 sons. Daughters, as you know, died. 2 sons, my father Eric and his younger brother Arnott. They're gone as well. We'll go now and look at my father's grave. So the only relative that I have any memory of buried in the old Shankill graveyard was the Sarah Caulfield, the one who was awarded the BEM. The next generation, my father, wasn't buried in Shankill graveyard. But he's buried here in what's known as the New Cemetery. He lies alongside my mother, and when it comes my time to go, this will be the plot where I will be buried. The last of my story. Well, I leave that to the oncoming family to continue it whenever they want.